Self-giving, self-surrender. But if we desire to make the most of the opportunity that this life gives us, if we wish to respond adequately to the call we have received and to attain the goal we have glimpsed, not merely advance a little towards it, it is essential that there should be an entire self-giving. The secret of success in yoga is to regard it not as one of the aims to be pursued in life, but as the whole of life. The synthesis of yoga. For the truth of the spirit has not to be merely thought, but to be lived, and to live it demands a unified single-mindedness of the being. So great a change as is contemplated by the yoga is not to be effected by a divided will or by a small portion of the energy or by a hesitating mind. He who seeks the divine must consecrate himself to God and to God only. The synthesis of yoga. An entire self-consecration, a complete equality, an unsparing effacement of the ego, a transforming deliverance of the nature from its ignorant modes of action are the steps by which the surrender of all the being and nature to the divine will can be prepared and achieved. A self-giving, true, total, and without reserve. The synthesis of yoga. For to the soul that wholly gives itself to him, God also gives himself altogether. Only the one who offers his whole nature finds the self. Only the one who can give everything enjoys the divine all everywhere. Only a supreme self-abandonment attains to the supreme. Only the sublimation by sacrifice of all that we are can enable us to embody the highest and live there in the immanent consciousness of the transcendent spirit. The synthesis of yoga. In other words, a will of entire self-giving opens wide all the gates of the spirit and brings in response an entire descent and self-giving of the Godhead to the human being, and that at once reshapes and assimilates everything in us to the law of the divine existence by a rapid transformation of the lower into the spiritual nature. The will of self-giving forces away by its power the veil between God and man. It annuls every error and annihilates every obstacle. Those who aspire in their human strength by effort of knowledge, or effort of virtue, or effort of laborious self-discipline, grow with much anxious difficulty towards the eternal. But when the soul gives up its ego and its works to the divine, God himself comes to us and takes up our burden. Essays on the Gita. If one wanted the divine himself would take up the purifying of the heart and develop the sadhana and give the necessary experiences. I meant to say that it can and does happen in that way if one has trust and confidence in the divine and the will to surrender. For such a taking up involves one's putting oneself in the hands of the divine rather than trusting to one's own efforts alone, and it implies one's putting one's trust and confidence in the divine and a progressive self-giving. It is in fact the principle of sadhana that I myself followed, and it is the central part of the yoga as I envisage it. Letters on Yoga 2. Man cannot by his own effort make himself more than man, but he can call down the divine truth and its power to work in him. A descent of the divine nature can alone divinize the human receptacle. Self-surrender to a supreme transmuting power is the key word of the yoga. Essays Divine and Human. The principle in view is a self-surrender, a giving up of the human being into the being, consciousness, power, delight of the divine, a union or communion of all the points of meeting in the soul of man, the mental being, by which the divine himself, directly and without veil, master and possessor of the instrument, shall, by the light of his presence and guidance, perfect the human being in all the forces of the nature for a divine living. The synthesis of yoga. The first word of the supramental yoga is surrender. Its last word also is surrender. It is by a will to give oneself to the eternal divine, for lifting into the divine consciousness, for perfection, for transformation, that the yoga begins. It is in the entire giving that it culminates, for it is only when the self-giving is complete that there comes the finality of the yoga, the entire taking up into the supramental divine, the perfection of the being, the transformation of the nature. Essays Divine and Human.